survive, thrive, stay alive. It's time to get prepared with the Prepping Academy podcast.
Yeah, I like that music.
Good beat. Really good beat.
It is good beat.
I like it.
Kind of builds up and then boom. So yeah. Awesome. Hey everyone, welcome to the Prepping Academy. I am Forrest. We have Uncle Buck with us tonight, like always. And we're going to bring you the best show on the airways, right?
Yeah. Yes, we sure are.
we are. That's what we do. So we released our first show. We had I think a very good response. And this show number whatever number it is, I don't even know.
Yeah, I think this is 5. I think
five.
It's 5.
Yeah. So, but you were telling me, I'm just going to jump right into it. You were telling me that some major things have been going on in your life, and and I know that Prepping Academy members, they just want to know what is going on with Uncle Buck.
Well, just coming off the Zello night, hosting that. So for those of you that don't know, there's we do a comms night when you're part of PrepperNet. So we run a variety of different scenarios and just allow the audience members to dial in. So that's kind of a benefit for joining PrepperNet. Great topic. I think the stuff that's been going on lately, I think I mentioned the military stuff coming up, right? So that's been like the big. So I had a conversation on late last week. Recruiter reached out of the blue and said, "Hey, are you interested in coming back in? Just going on the reserve side." And I don't know, man. It's been a topic of conversation at home. I've been reaching out to other folks and trying to get their take on it. The vax mandate is officially gone. Like, it's done. It was part of the NDAA, that National Defense Authorization Act, which was passed by the Senate, Congress, and ultimately signed into law by the president, by the POTUS, on December 23rd. So I don't know. And I think there's 30 days for Secretary of Defense to put out guidance on what that means. I did receive today the official guidance that it's going away, but what that actually means and all that stuff, I don't know. So the question right now is like, do I go back in? Do I Roger up and go back in? Do I not and just say I'm good? I don't know. I got to think about it, pray about it. I'm not really sure.
That's a big decision. So you literally got out because of the mandate, and now you see an opportunity to get back in, and you're just like, what's best for me and my family?
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying not to be, there's I look at it 2 different ways, right? Number one, and I'll just be like perfectly blunt on this one. I could be bitter and upset and mad and angry and all that fun stuff and just say, hey, you made your bed, lie in it. No worries. The flip side is there is a shortage. There is a need. I like serving. I'm good at it. So what is the why not push forward, right? And just bringing some level-headedness to the military as well. Not that everybody is not level-headed that's in. I'm not saying that at all, but just trying to bring in some common sense and some practicality in as well. I don't know if that will help. I don't know if it's going to be a hindrance. Don't know. But just, I don't know. Lots of decisions to make here over the next couple weeks.
Well, I know mostly the reason why you're thinking about doing this has to do with the money, right?
Yeah. That reserve money, big money. Yeah. It has absolutely nothing to do with the money. It's just, I don't know. There's that ethos of brotherhood and that camaraderie.
So much. Yeah. Yes. But so it's all up in the air, meaning, is there any chance of getting back to where you were? Is that,
Mhm.
or is this a whole?
No, I'd go back right to essentially I'd have a gap year, right? I mean, that's what would happen. And then you turn the switch back on and off you go, and you're back in doing what I typically do. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but it's certainly a big decision. I'll just pray about it and hope for the best.
That is awesome. So same kind of situation with me. I was a member of the team of the Chippendales, and and they cut the team because of COVID,
and they're calling you back.
And I can be team lead now.
That dream's finally being fulfilled.
Oh, I had to go there. Sorry about that.
All good, man. All good. But yeah, so the other, I know we're kind of getting around topics, right? But something that came up, just incredible story. So I'm at church yesterday. We get there a little bit late. Walk in with the family, and we ended up getting in the aisle right behind another guy, his wife, and they got a few kids. And afterwards, he turns around, we start talking, and I've known him before. I had multiple conversations, and a really good dude. And he's like, "Hey, a bunch of people are coming over to one of the other guys' house to pray over me." I'm like, "Okay, can you elaborate a little bit more?" And he says, he's like, "Yeah, I'm having a surgery on Thursday, in the next few days here." And I said, "Okay." So I was like, I asked, I was like, "Well, this if people are praying over you, this is no Mickey Mouse surgery. Something's going on here. So what's happening?" The guy's ended up donating his kidney. He's going to be donating his kidney. So it was just incredibly awesome. So I go to this house with about 15 other guys, and we're just listening to his story, and you're like, wow, it's his wife's friend that she used to work with, and he's got some weird strange kidney ailment that now is going to put him on dialysis for the next 3 years. And then he'll probably, well, not probably, he is expected to live only another 3 years. And he's going to have to go through a lot of dialysis in the process. So buddy here, he's strong Christian. The gentleman he's given the kidney to is a Hasidic Jew, non-practicing. And they differ politically. They differ on spirituality. They're just different. And he went and got tested and this is over a long period of time. I think they started doing the testing like 12, 18 months ago. And it somehow became like this crazy match. I didn't really understand like how to donate organs, but it's like, to get the right match for a person, it's like super, super rare, right? I mean, there's a lot of folks. For every 100 people come in, like maybe 98 of them will not work.
Wow,
maybe 99 of them won't work. So it's very rare that person matches. Initially, the daughter of the gentleman, the recipient of the kidney, was gonna receive. She was gonna provide hers, but she ended up not qualifying at the last moment for some reason. So he just prayed about it, and he's going forward with it. He's going to be 2 days in the hospital. And I'm like, we're all just like sitting back. I'm like, a guy you didn't know, your wife knew, different views politically, different views religiously, different, just completely different people. And he's just making this ultimate, like a pretty sizable sacrifice and a commitment here. Right. So it got me thinking. I'm like just sacrifice and commitment in general, around everything we do, like preparedness in general, right? Like doing preparedness, it takes a sacrifice. It definitely takes a commitment, right? You got to be committed to procuring the items, to training with the items, to continue to surrounding yourself with those types of individuals as well. It just got me thinking about I don't know, man. Like I was like just blown away by it.
That's a serious commitment. That's I mean, gosh, my question is, could it put the donor's life in jeopardy if his kidneys fail, or I guess you can live with one kidney, eat pretty easy.
Yeah. So what it said is if that occurs, so if you get a one kidney removed, your other kidney will actually grow to upwards of 85% of the two combined. So it actually, the body's an amazing thing, makes up for it. Mm-hmm.
So could you get it back if you need it later on?
No. It's no rescinding, no rescinding on that later.
Gosh, that's I haven't been in a position to do that, but I think for my family members, I would definitely do that.
Mm-hmm.
But for someone that I didn't know, I mean, let me ask you this. I mean, this is kind of a crazy question. What if, the hospital calls you and say, "Hey, we found a match for you. This person's willing to give you $20,000 for your kidney. He lives in, London, England. Would you be interested?"
No.
I mean, so the only difference here is that there is kind of an acquaintance there, I guess, the wife's friend.
Yeah.
But truly, what's the difference? I mean, one is for money, one is just because you want to help someone. But I mean, could you see people actually doing that one day though? Hey, I'll sell my kidney. Who wants it?
Maybe. I mean,
maybe.
There's weird stuff that goes. There's people that goes. There's weird stuff that goes on in this world. It's just getting weirder. I mean, Brazil's on fire right now.
Yeah.
If you paid attention to that, China is doing what China does. The CCP. You got. I don't know what's Kim Jong Un's up to lately in North Korea. Probably something not good. And then of course, you got the proxy war going on in Ukraine right now. So. Weird times, man. We're just in super weird times.
There was actually a case today that, it actually went Friday in front of the Supreme Court. No one even knows about this, but it was these two brothers suing the government and over Trump's election, the results
from 2020.
Yeah, 2020, and no press whatsoever, but it went in front of them, and the Supreme Court decided not to do a hearing on it. But if there had been a hearing on this, just amazing that it even got to that level. If there would have been a hearing on it, there would have been chaos in America. It's so weird. Because if they would have done a hearing on it, the end results is every politician that didn't protest the election, including the vice president, would all be removed from office immediate, because that's the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some reason it was so strange. People were behind it. It was called, I think it was Branson Branson Brothers, if you want to research that. And they didn't hear it, and I'm kind of thankful, but meaning they looked at the evidence and they just said, not now. That doesn't mean it can't come back in front of them.
Okay. So they just deferred the case. They didn't say,
yes.
They didn't kick it out of the court altogether.
Yeah, but it has to be refiled just with the Supreme Court, though. So it doesn't have to go back to lower courts or anything, but that was kind of interesting. I just didn't know how I felt about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What? So is this, because this is always the debate, right? I watched the 2000 Mules and all that fun stuff, and I'm like, I look at it from a practical standpoint where that's great. You're tracking all these folks, but I'm like, you could draw some assumptions, but I couldn't tell every envelope that was slid in who was voted for on each envelope. I don't know how you test that. Like, I don't even know how you validate that. Yeah, you could say it looks suspicious, sure, but maybe it's a bunch of Kanye West votes. I don't know. I don't know how you validate it.
Well, I will say this: a lot of the states where they have the video of people packing, the law is you can't even file your mother's if she's sick.
Mhm.
So right there, you can tell they're breaking the law. If they have more than one in their hand, they're breaking the law. But this case it was interesting. And if you guys again, it's called Brunson Brothers. Y'all can look that up. And I had a court. I mean, but it was just interesting. But at some point, people just have to let things go. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Trump is not going to take over. I mean, the My Pillow guy thinks he still is.
He does. He does.
And Monkey Works. What are these? But anyway, I'm so glad we're past that. And maybe this, we do need to fix the elections, but that's not for us to discuss here. But
100%. And yeah, like you can't rely. There's too many people relying on one guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, Trump is one guy. I don't know. Like I can't. I don't know the guy. So
yeah, I will say this. It was kind of interesting. So we just went through this. When they went through all that stuff about electing the House Speaker, Trump was really involved in that, which surprised me. I mean, Trump was calling people. They were making deals. Trump called that one guy that was at the very last minute, and he finally changed his vote, which allowed McCarthy to get the House. And I was totally taken back of how much power and influence Trump had still today, in January, 2 years after he's no longer president. But I was totally surprised about that. That was very interesting. Did you watch any of that, by the way?
No.
Okay.
I've been on a political fast for like the last 3 weeks. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good for a little bit. But do you think, Trump's announced, do you think he wins the Republican ticket?
I'm going to predict that he does.
Even over DeSantis.
Gosh, I don't know. I know my heart is saying I hope DeSantis wins because he's a much better. I don't know. Trump. The reason the world hates Trump because he does mean tweets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he would stay off Twitter, I think he would have a better chance of beating DeSantis. But I just can't. I just can't see anyone beating him. I really, which kind of upsets me because I think if he runs again, even against Joe Biden, they may people will vote against Trump just because they hate him.
Yeah,
which is a good reason. I mean, if you hate someone, don't vote him. But I think Republicans are in trouble for the next 6 years.
Fantastic.
Fantastic
Stuff. So I finished the book. It was called The Crash, the
Crash,
Decline and Rise of America. So I just finished that up today.
Who wrote it?
I cannot remember the gentleman's name off the top of my head. I can look it up real quick while we're on. But Mark Favreau, Marc Favreau. Yeah, okay. Short read, but really, really good. So one of the, we started talking about initially kind of about sacrifice and commitment, and you start listening to these people's stories about the Great Depression, and you're like, holy cow. I mean, talk about a different world and like how easy we have it. So you had Herbert Hoover in there, who was a good statesman. Everybody loved him up until the Great Depression came, and then everybody hated him. And then FDR came in, ultimately with big government spending and the New Deal, and created jobs all over the place. Ultimately, what got us through the Great Depression was the war, right? So we ended up that was kind of a big thing. All the money spent down there to fight the war effort. But one of the things that I was reading on there were excerpts from people that there was this groups and tons of people always looking for somebody else to blame. They were blaming the politicians. They were blaming the immigrants that immigrated over from Italy or wherever else. They were blaming everybody else. So I got thinking about this stuff, and I'm like, well, how's that any different from today? Is it the same as today? We just have social media now that kind of pushes that message out almost real time or in real time.
Right.
Like, is it any different or is it still the same?
Well, back then the newspaper had to carry the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's and so the newspaper. I mean, and back then the newspaper was not only a monopoly; it was literally controlled by just a few people. And the question is, why were they trying to project that narrative out to the people? Because they're writing, hey, it's the Italians coming over. I mean, we wonder what their motivation was.
Yep.
Because at that time, people couldn't verify. They couldn't verify anything that was in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad and a lot of them just took it for granted. What they were saying, took it that what was printed was real. You got a little blurry there, man. Am I drinking my tea a little too much here?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the camera.
Gosh, I'm like, I have the fisheye glasses,
Yeah, sorry, man. I don't know what's going on. I figured it would set up here pretty quickly, but all good. If it doesn't, I'll just jump off camera.
So, was the book? Is it worth a read?
Yeah, it's worth a read. It's certainly it gives some quick historical references on what happened, and talks about the women's suffrage movement. Talks about the rise of the NAACP and the unions and why people wanted to unionize. But yeah, I thought it was well worth read on some historical references, and I just try to tie it into what's going on today and like what happens if we do go through another Great Depression. Like, what happens? Like, what do we do?
Did you so what did you learn from it, and that you could carry forward or prepare different, or how are you going to take that information and change your future?
Yeah, there's that was truly an area of all that time. It was all about self-reliance. So initially when the Great Depression started kicking off and the stock market was going down, and you had stockbrokers literally jumping off out of buildings and committing suicide, like almost overnight, because they lost everything. They had runs on banks. Banks started closing. You couldn't get your money out of there. I mean, some real heavy stuff. But initially, Hoover was in denial. Like, he was like, this is not happening. This is not going on. So you had the president of the United States at the time denying that anything's even existing. And then you got all these folks that are just suffering incredibly, like, especially in like the cities, right? You had, I think that the stat was the city of Chicago had about an 80% unemployment rate. I mean, they lost all kinds of jobs there. So what a lot of these folks did, they just started traveling for work. They started going to where they could find work. A lot of them are out in the farms. That's just what they had to do. But a lot of them became very self-reliant. They started planting gardens. They started trying to scrape by any kind of living that they possibly could. Gardening was a really big thing. Getting into that, the gardening life, and trying to plant and grow food, ultimately to eat, and then also to barter to get additional pieces of food or other food. So that was a big one. And then folks got really creative with how they made money. So they got really creative with how they ended up generating money. And this camera's driving me nuts, dude. I don't know what's going on.
It's fine. That's how I see. Oh, well,
No.
He disappeared. There you are. So I read a book as well. I mean, I literally read a book over the weekend. You familiar with Jonathan Hollerman? There you go. You familiar with Jonathan Hollerman?
I am, yes.
So he wrote one of the best books, probably a nonfiction book, probably my favorite book, and it's called Survival Theory. Unbelievable book. When I read that for the first time, I called him and I said, "Did you literally steal my thoughts and put it in this book?" Because they're not what he has in Survival Theory is not in other books. So his second book is called Survival Theory 2. It hasn't been published yet. He asked me to write a foreword, so he sent me the book, and I read it all this weekend because he needs a quote from me. And first of all, he kind of slams the preparedness community, which I totally understand. He says that we're too light, we don't really understand true grid down or going without food. And the first third of the book, he talks about, back in the Great Depression. He talks about other civilizations and that have gone through where they had no food. This one story was just terrifying. It's the family, in one country, they were eating this mud to fill their stomach. They found this mud and they would eat it and it would dry the insides out. But then they would also take their leather shoes and soak it in water and then eat the leather. And I was like, what? And he's talking like hundreds of thousands of people were doing this. And I'm like, gosh. And he talked about all the studies that have been done. Like there's I think it was a Stanford or study about starvation. Then he goes through and just, it talks about the calories you need and if the grid really goes down, how it's way worse than we would ever possibly imagine. And he and we're like brothers because we think just alike. He says there's no such thing as an urban prepper. He is just like me. Is when the grid goes down or a major event happens, you've got to get away from all population. You've got to.
What's the time? Did he give you a timeline like that happens?
Well, he agrees with me. You probably got about 48 hours, 72 hours to go. Now, if it's like an EMP and cars don't work, you got to go immediately. But it is, you've got to go. And I've always said this, and PrepperNet members can verify this, that you go and hide. You don't go and set up camp at this house in the middle of nowhere. You go to that house and you hide. You go underground. You stay inside. For 6 months. You just hide. You don't grow a garden at this time at all. You don't want people to see any resources on your land. And and he agrees 100%. And 6 months, 8 months, that our own government says that 90% of the people will die if a grid down happens. And he talks through that and why they will and how and he said also, well, anyway, I don't want to give too much of the book away because it hadn't been published yet, but it's coming out next month in well, I guess probably the end of February, I think. I'm not sure. I don't know when it's coming out. Pretty soon because he wants my forward. But it was really
depressing.
It was depressing.
Kind
of like it is depressing. He said he met with this one group and they had, I forgot how many calories per person for the year. And he said, and they wanted to buy more guns and ammo. And he goes, don't. You need more food. Double your food. And they looked at him like, well, guns and ammos are cheaper at this point. He goes, nope, you got to double your food. And we talked about, hiding 90% of your food, living off 10% of it. And then every now and then going and getting some more. But we think just alike. And so that's, But that book, it's a great book. We're going to interview him coming up in the next probably a few weeks and ask him about his book and why he wrote it. And I know why he wrote it. He told me why he wrote it. So I would say I only know 3 people that are, and I'm going to include myself. So I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but I only know 3 people that really consult with groups in a large way. And that is Jonathan Harleman. He does multi-million-dollar retreats for rich people. There is Charlie Hogwood that wrote the book called MAGs or Survival Groups, and myself. I would say that 80% of all consulting in the United States is one of the 3 people. And people go, well, that's kind of, well, you would believe how little people are looking for groups, to be honest with you. And so we were sitting in a parking lot in Waynesville, North Carolina at 1:00 in the morning. I know this sounds like a war story. So we were all at this one event, which we never go to the one event, but we were sitting out in the parking lot. We went to a restaurant with a bunch of people. Everyone left, and the 3 of us were just in the parking lot. We got our chairs out, and we're just sitting there in Waynesville, North Carolina. And we talked from, it was probably 12:15 to 4:30 in the parking lot. The police came by twice to say, "You guys okay?" We're like, "Yeah, we're fine." And we were talking about this. So the 3, planners and it was so unbelievable that we were all on the same page so much. We're like finishing each other's sentences. It was crazy. And from that is where the Survival Theory 2 came from. And I called him and I said, "Dude, I'm so mad. I'm glad you wrote this though, because it goes with your book 1, but I wanted to write this book, but you did such a great job at it." But anyway, that was a good time in my life, just sitting there talking to other colleagues and talking about the most depressing stuff we could talk about. But
yeah, for 4 hours straight.
But it was very fun.
All right, yeah. There was have you ever followed the guy Jack Richland? You ever see his stuff?
I've heard of him.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I read any of his stuff.
I want to say he's a Black Scout Survival. So I think he's down in, I want to say he's down in, he's somewhere in the Southeast, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, somewhere around there. But he's ex-Marine Corps, but seems very squared away. And he does a lot of, videos, podcasts, etc. He mentions, I think a book. I was just watching a recent episode. It was called, I think, Emergency. But he talks about it was about like a lot of the ultra wealthy folks having bunkers and like all kinds of like weird, just I mean, not weird stuff, but stuff that you wouldn't think about, right? Because you always hear folks on prepping community, anybody that says, "Oh, you're a prepper," it's wild. But then you go to Steven Spielberg and he's got like an underground, like multi-million-dollar bunker, like fully loaded with everything under the sun. You're like, holy cow, that's yeah, it's pretty incredible. So they're like-minded as well, even though they're not public maybe about it.
Right. Yeah, there are some positive things about prepping though, correct?
Oh yeah. It gets you to think ahead, right? It gets you to think forward. I mean, just the call we just did on the Zello night, the question was, and I'll read the question to you, was, have you ever tested your preparations by going off grid for a period of time? If not, why not? If yes, what lessons have you learned that you can share with the group? And a lot of good lessons on there. A lot was around power outages because folks live in just different areas within the U.S., right? You had Northeast recently had power out. Right. Folks out in the West, power outage, that's a common occurrence. Definitely people in the mountains can go 2, 3, 4 days up to a week with no power. It just happens up there. But being prepared with your food and your water and your clothing and insulation, you're good. You just kind of keep on going, business as usual, while everybody else is freaking out trying to go get a generator. You're already done. You already have everything planned out. So big benefits.
And and maybe we should somehow profile events where people were prepared and they got through it, or help people more than we do. Follow what I'm saying? I mean, like the story of someone driving, through Atlanta when the big snowstorm happened, and they said, hey, because of PrepperNet or because of a movie or a podcast, I had a car bag in my car, and it saved our lives, kind of thing. Because 90% of all disasters and what we're prepping for are, they happen all the time. Florida's, California got killed with rain. The north got killed with snow. I mean, there was snow drifts like 10 feet high. I saw this one, they dug out around the car, and the car still had like 5 feet of snow on top of it. I mean, that's crazy. That was in Buffalo. And there are disasters happening all the time. And so people, the prepping is not always a futuristic. Maybe, for some people, it could be next week that they need their preps and their knowledge.
Correct. Yeah. It's not, a lot of folks think it's like Mel Gibson and Mad Max, right?
Right.
Like that's what we're getting to. I'm like, well, if that was to happen, that would take a long time to occur. There'll be a lot of things that happen in the interim. But yeah, like, I don't know, like you just feel more, I think you touched on it on a prior show, where you're just more confident with stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, this breaks down. Just don't worry. I'm just going to keep on rolling. Like, I'm not even going to miss a beat. So I like that aspect. And particularly if you have family that is dependent on you to provide and to protect and make sure that you have your stuff squared away. I like it. I think it's important. There's the military aspect. I know that you and I talked about before, where that's what you do, right? It's your PACE plan, primary, alternative, contingent, emergency. You just lay it out. This is how things are going to play out. If this scenario occurs, we're protected.
So, a quick little story. We had our Christmas party in Charlotte, and my phone just kept buzzing. Everyone's phone started kind of buzzing, and we're like, what the heck? And I'm getting ready to open my gift. We're playing this, is it the Dirty Santa, whatever it is, where I'm just waiting for my gift, and my phone is kind of bothering me. And I finally look at it, or actually Beth came up to me and said, hey, look at your phone. And I'm like, what? We had a lady that was traveling, over an hour to come to the Christmas party. And while she was on her way to the Christmas party, she literally had a wreck. I think a drunk driver hit her. And of course, people are calling me and I'm ignoring them. I'm like, I got a gift coming. So I felt really bad. But if I'm recalling this right, she got on Zello, which our Zello channel, and I'll tell everybody what Zello channel is in a minute, but and she called out for help, and all of a sudden people got kind of called to do something. They're like activated. And then within an hour or so, we had someone going to pick her up to take her to a hotel or take her, to bring her to all this stuff. But it's having that network of people, even when you're an hour and a half, 2 hours away. That's what really I think people need to work on. And that's really the reason I created PrepperNet. But people need to have that community, so when things do come up, they're not going through it themselves. They might not have all the knowledge or the tools that they need. And you guys really need to be in some kind of a group. PrepperNet would probably be the best one you could be in, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And but I want to tell you guys, so we in PrepperNet, we practice all kinds of things. We have comms, where we have this nationwide ham radio grid. We do digital radio. We do, they're called nets. We really practice them all the time. There's something going on all the time when it comes to communication. And then on Mondays and several other nights in the week, we use this. It's an iPhone app, and it's like a walkie-talkie using your iPhone. And people, a lot of people go, well, if the grid goes down, that won't work. True, but it gets you practice on talking to it on like a ham radio.
Mm-hmm.
But also, several years ago, we were in many times we've helped like hurricane situations. And, out on the boats was the Cajun Navy, and they're using Zello. It's kind of strange when you think, all Florida's out without power and they're still using Zello. That's because the phone towers are still working and the data is being transferred, but that's their main communication. And they save lives all the time. And so we use that as practice. And so that's what the Zello night is. So we practice a lot of stuff that you're going to need in the future. And tonight you ran like a net on Zello, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yeah.
And you asked that question and people were giving you answers and feedback.
Yeah. A lot of good feedback on those lessons learned. I'm just kind of looking at my sheet here. But yeah, a lot of it came down to the basics, right? Get back to the basics. A heat source, a water source. So you got to be able to cook, a water source, having some, being able to have access to water jugs, water containers, something of that nature. There's a variety. We could go on and on different aspects of water. The other one too was on get home bags, right? Your get home or your bag if you're doing travel. So I know there's some folks on there that do a lot of traveling. So that's pretty important as well. And we'll do a breakdown session on what a get home bag is. So when you're traveling, for folks that do traveling for work and you're driving, a couple hours outside of your home, having some basic necessities with you, in case something goes south. I don't leave home without it.
Right.
So it's, incredibly important as well. And we cover a lot of that in PrepperNet during our monthly meetings as well. So if you ever link up with a group, usually a bug out bag or a get home bag, that is a topic of discussion, and folks get to break it out for you. I actually went to the CERT, Certified Emergency Response Team. So one of the CERT classes was all about get home bags as well. And so essentially the whole class was just everybody coming there. Mm-hmm. What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? Right. And we just started like comparing and trading notes. Some folks had some really cool stuff. Some had some stuff that was a useful item and it was just compact and a lot smaller. Some just had better quality stuff. It was a good way to just kind of stack out if you have the right stuff. And then ultimately, is it the right type of stuff, right? Because different qualities, different sizes, shapes, all that stuff, because pounds equals pain if you're having to carry things on foot. So yeah, I learned so much just going to those sessions as well.
Well, I break down, if I have a bag for my car, I have not really a bag. I have a list of things for my car. And then I have my get home bag. So if I'm with my get home bag and my car, I'm good to go. But for car, you need simple stuff. Like fix a flat, and I have a tow rope. People go, what are you going to tow? I'm like, well, someone may be able to tow me. Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of things that you just need to think through, and we should do a whole show on that. The bug out bag not the bug out bag. The get home bag is probably one of the most important things you can have, because I've utilized mine all the time for like ibuprofen. The simple stuff, or sometimes depending on what clothing I wear, if I have my flashlight on me. And I know that's weird. People go, sometimes if I don't have the side pocket, I'm not going to carry a flashlight in my front pocket. It just depends on the clothing I wear. But I always have my bug out bag handy, nearby. Also, my bug out bag saved me. I kid you not. I'm coming from Chicago, Illinois, and I go through this well, it's not very dangerous. I go through this toll booth and I needed the exact change because I went in the wrong lane. And my bug out bag was right there. And I knew in my top pocket, I had all these quarters. I literally had like 2 rolls of quarters. And I'm like, oh, and I'm breaking them open and throwing the exact change in there. Because next time I need to pay attention that, you can go through credit card ones or, exact change. And so it saved my life.
Yeah. Came in handy. That's awesome.
It came in handy. I would never carry quarters other than having it in my bag. But yeah. That would have been, I don't know what they would have made me do. I had no cash. I guess they could have taken credit card if.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Or you just
I don't know.
You just keep rolling through and they mail you a bill like 6 months later.
Or
I've done that
you
before.
In jail.
Yeah. That might be the case now. Yeah, man. I think we do need, there's some aspects of items that I just keep in my truck as well. They're always in there. I mean, always in there. It has nothing to do with the get home bag, right? I keep that get home bag as well. But yeah, there's certain just items that I just like having in my truck at all times. But yeah, we definitely need to talk through that. I can just like take an inventory of what I keep in there, whether it's right, whether it's wrong. That's just what I frequently go to. Folks make fun of it. I know I've been out on trips before where I like, hey, you got a small coffee maker in the back of your truck. I was like, yes, I do. I was like, you got to have it, man. You got to have it. Because I'm like, I'm tired of going to certain places and you just don't have your coffee. So it's this little cheap thing I got at like the dollar store. I mean, it's a piece of garbage, but it works.
You don't have a coffee problem, do you?
No, not at all. Not at all. But toe straps, I keep a machete in there, an axe, a saw, toe chains, a small little air compressor that you can plug into a cigarette lighter. I'm just going through some of the inventory, like ponchos. I keep a couple ponchos in there, a change of clothes in the back, a small little hatchet, ratchet straps. Those are a must. I think that's and some little other odds and ends, but a lot of different things. Right, always riding with me.
Same. So one of the things in the beginning we were going to talk about, I mean, the commitment and the sacrifice of being a prepper. I mean, I know we've talked about everything, but man, when you say commitment, the commitment's easy. I mean, it's because it becomes. I mean, when you get into this and you start thinking. I mean, the question is, how much do you love your family? Do you love them worth, 1 week's worth of food? 1 month's worth of food? I mean, how long do you want to keep them alive? You know what I mean? So that can be kind of judged, but the sacrifices, I mean, how many things am I not buying or how many great restaurants am I not going out to eat because I'm buying freeze-dried food or getting more ammo or going on a trip with PrepperNet, in May? I mean, there are sacrifices for sure. The one you don't want to make, though, is when it sacrifices your time with your family.
True.
Would you agree with that?
Agreed. Well, yes, I do agree with it. There's
but all night tonight you've been doing prepper stuff, right?
Yeah, I've been doing prepper. Yeah, I've been doing prepper stuff all night. I'll hear about it tomorrow. But I think it's important, and I think we touched on this maybe before. But I think it's important to involve them in the process, right? That I think that's critical. Bringing them along in the process. When we do these kind of scout type adventures, it's great. I mean, it's good practice. It's good experience. Particularly if you have girls, right? Like, hey, just get them involved with that. Show them how to run a water filter, how to start a fire, like how to do some basic necessities, and just ultimately get them in that frame of mind. Like, hey, I got to be thinking kind of like a chessboard. I got to be thinking 2, 3, 4 moves ahead in the event that something goes south. I'm already well ahead of the game. Yeah, not just girls.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. So you get your family involved, but there's a sacrifice, and sometimes we do have to make sacrifices for our family. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I go to work, you go to work. I mean, that's time away from the family, but when you do get in the family involved, it's so much better. And
100%.
when they turn teenagers and they graduate, like I got two kids. One's out of college, one's graduated from college, and one's graduated from high school. And once you instill knowledge in them, it gives you confidence a little bit too when you release them.
So it reduces your worry, right?
Yeah, right.
Ultimately.
Right. Not my wife's, but mine.
They're good. They can handle themselves. All right.
Yeah. You hope. You never know. So, what else you got?
That was it. That's just we started off with donating a kidney on sacrifice, and we closed it out with prepping. Yeah. So we
let me ask you, do you have an extra kidney you want to donate?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I'll pass.
Some. I'll pass. Hard pass. But yeah, let's this is great. I mean, let's go ahead and pray us out, or you want me to pray us out, or you want to do it?
I can do it.
All right.
So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for all that you've given us, Lord. Lord, you tell us in your word in Matthew 24, Lord, that there's going to be some times coming ahead, Lord, that we need to be prepared for, Lord. And I just pray for everyone listening, Lord, that they can, look to you and trust in you, but also, get their family on board, have less stress in their life, and build their confidence, Lord, and just their own knowledge and skills, and with you, Lord, to get through the things that this world's going to bring forth to us, Lord. Just we thank you, we love you, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, everyone, we will see you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe, and tell your friends and family. And if your friends and family if they don't want to listen, just force them. Just tie them up.
Thanks for listening to the Prepping Academy podcast. Preppers Unite at www.preppingacademy.com.